Hello, this is Emma Ghaffari and welcome to Weekly World Climate Change News. The International Panel of Climate Change released their special report on the effects of global warming should we not adhere to the 2015 Paris Agreement. We could be witnessing its full effects in as little as 12 years. With a 0.5 degree increase in global temperature over the summer, we could see its harrowing consequences. Further increase will continue to not only cause devastation, but also threaten human life and access to food, water, and health services. The new Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change study shows there might be a solution. However, radical alterations to current human behavior needs to be undertaken immediately, with no time to waste. They stress the importance of cutting down on emissions, planting trees, making lifestyle changes, through the aid of technology. Another shocking report shows that people in low to mid-income countries are 7 times more likely to die in the occurrence of a natural disaster. It is mentioned that nearly $3 trillion has been lost to natural disasters in the last 2 decades, significantly higher than the previous 2 decades. Moreover, the heightened vulnerability in the undeveloped countries has led to them suffering and experiencing more damage, with the spending of at least 10% of their GDP on damages. The next big worry will be the heat waves, which would not only impact the economy, but the human thermal limit. The European Union and 9 other jurisdictions have signed an agreement banning commercial fishing in the Central Arctic Ocean for at least 16 years. There will be a 5-year extension until scientists understand the changing ecosystems and the region's potential for sustainable fishing. No fishing is taking place in the area, but with melting ice sheets in the Arctic, there is need for protection against unregulated fishing. The fashion industry is a major source of greenhouse gases causing global warming. The UK government calls for less clothing consumption and a control of waste management. A huge amount of clothing is dumped in landfills yearly, and fibers end up in the sea, increasing pollution. If clothing consumption continues at its current rate, it will account for more than a quarter of our impact on climate change by 2050. Residents of the Pacific Islands are terrified of the impact projected by the newly released report by the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which portray the devastating consequences with the rising global temperature. Their cultural heritage, homelands, and traditional livelihoods are all in danger, making it increasingly difficult to ignore the constant environmental changes, especially for the poorer nations that might be swept away by the rising waves and sea levels terrorizing the region. Scientists warn that attempts to maximize the amount of carbon stored in forests can result in darker landscape, which would lead to higher surface temperatures. A report by European scientists reveals that forest management strategies aiming to meet the Paris Agreement goals may have side effects. They advise governments to adapt forest cover to future climate for best results in fulfilling the Paris Agreement goals about global warming, and that forest management could offset CO2 emissions without halting global temperature rise. William Nordhaus and Paul Romer have been awarded the Nobel Prize for their work on sustainable development. The 2 US economists are researching on climate change and how it affects economic growth and activity, and the consequences. The Nobel Prize for Economics has been dominated by American nationals and men since first awarded in 1969. The polluting giant Exxon puts $1 million into a political campaign, which, if won, would impose tax on carbon emissions. This move corresponds to Exxon's long-time support for an add-on price to carbon dioxide emissions instead of environmental regulations for rising the price of fossil fuels. The company is ready to give $2 million for the campaign in the next 2 years. I'm Emma Ghaffari, and we hope you join us next week on Weekly World Climate Change News.